Manowar, please let me formally introduce Dr. Kirbir Adamu. Dr. Kirbir Adamu is our resource person this night. This is the first online meeting we are having, and Dr. Kirbir graciously obliged us. Dr. Kirbir is the founder and the CEO, Beacon Consulting Limited. And he's actually an intellectual and academia. It's a privilege to have you in the house, Doctor. You're highly welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. It's also a honor to be in the midst of the well-respected Nigerians and to be granted this opportunity to talk to the to your organization, and especially the operatives that are involved in intelligence. Just to mention, I have a background in intelligence. Back in my school days, I've also participated in some activities by Manowar. So I feel really elated and happy to talk about a topic that I really, really love, and also very importantly, to be having that discussion with an organization as important, as privileged as Manowar. So having said that, with your permission, I will dive into the presentations. I've shared a presentation here, and I'll just dive into it. The outline is as presented above. First, we'll do a definition. What is security? What is intelligence? There are different types of intelligence. We're narrowing down on the one called security intelligence. Then, what are those qualities of an effective and efficient intelligence operative? It's not everyone that can be an intelligence operative. So we'll look at those qualities that make a good intelligence operative. We'll also look at the sources of intelligence. The word intelligence is one of the most abused words in Nigeria. Everybody uses it. But what really is intelligence, and where can you get it from? So we'll look at that. And then we'll look at what is called the intelligence cycle. The whole process of producing an intelligence is called a cycle. So we'll look at that. And then we'll now do a conclusion. And in that conclusion will be the recommendations. How do you improve intelligence in Manowar? Of course, the topic is retooling and developing intelligence and information gathering for officers of the future. In other words, how do we retool? How do we develop intelligence and information gathering for officers for the future? We're looking ahead, and that's what we want to do. Now, what are the aims of this gathering, this webinar? The aims are four in nature. First, to understand the nature and practice of intelligence. Then to list and explain the qualities of a good intelligence operative. Then to highlight the sources of intelligence. And then lastly, to outline measures and recommendations for improving the practice of intelligence. I'm starting with a brief introduction of Manowar Nigeria, as I understand it. If I'm wrong anywhere, please correct me. So we're saying that Manowar was established by the federal government through the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center as empowered by the Enabling Ordinance as published in an extraordinary Gazette number 45 of August 10, 1960, and modified by Decree number 38 of December 1989. So it's very important to establish that Manowar is a paramilitary organization that has been established by the Nigerian government. It has the cadet arms in several schools as well as colleges all over the Federation. I mentioned earlier on that I did participate in Manowar activities in both secondary school and other places where I have studied. The Manowar governance structure consists of a national command, state commands, area commands, and then at local government levels and unit commands at ward. So we can arguably say that Manowar is one of the most represented organizations in the country with this level of structures at all the three levels of government and even beyond that at the ward.
Please, we can hear you, sir. The audio.
Is it?
Sir, can you hear you, sir?
You all can't hear me.
No,
I
can hear you.
I could hear you loud and clear. Probably it's from his own side.
Most likely. So check your side. All right. And we're also saying that the ordinance that established Manowar placed it under the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center, Nigeria, which is a parastatal of the Federal Ministry of Youth and Social Development. In other words, the reporting line for Manowar is through the Citizenship and Leadership Training Center, and then the Federal Ministry of Youth and Social Development. Please remember this, because later we'll talk about this. And that's why it's important that we establish this background. What are the functions of Manowar Nigeria? The functions are spelled out there, but the one that I really want to talk about is the one highlighted here.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
The function that I'm highlighting is that Manowar Nigeria complements efforts of law enforcement agencies of government in traffic management, security of life and property, environment protection, general safety, and crowd control. So the mandate of Manowar, as provided in this ordinance that we're citing, actually gives it some responsibility in the area of security, as spelled out in this function. So please, let's remember this. We'll now go into our topic proper. We'll come back to this at the end.
Thank you very much.
All right, now let's discuss what we understand as security intelligence. Like I said at the beginning, everybody uses the word intelligence. You hear media practitioners, you hear pundits, you hear virtually everybody talking about intelligence. But what is this word really? What does it mean? So we're talking about security intelligence. It is the information relevant to protecting an organization from external and insider threats, as well as the processes, policies, and tools designed to gather and analyze that information. So at the center of intelligence is information. And what this is saying is that you need information to gather, you need to gather this information from external and inside threats. In other words, you can have threats that are external and you can have threats that are inside. So if we use a house as an example, everybody outside the house who represents a threat, such as armed robbers, are external threats. But if you have, for a spouse, for instance, that is sabotaging your effort, then that spouse is an insider threat. Likewise, if you're an employer, in the case of Manowar, your operatives that are going against your mandate, what you believe in, and sabotaging your effort, those ones are insider threats. And so understanding them, gathering information about them is actually what is required here to move it. And then we're saying once you gather that information, you process the information based on policies and then all the tools that are designed to gather and analyze that information. That is what security intelligence is all about. This what security intelligence is at different levels. You can have it at the corporate level, you can have it at the national level. And that is why the next thing we're discussing is called national intelligence. Now, national intelligence, different from security intelligence, is the integrated departmental intelligence, which means that there are several organizations that work on this, and they now come together to produce what is called national intelligence. And it covers the broad aspects of national policy and national security. It's of concern to more than one department and agency and transcends the exclusive competence of a single department or agency. In other words, if we look at Nigeria, there are at least 3 major organizations that are mandated to collect national intelligence, and they are coordinated by one. What are these 3 intelligence organizations? The State Security Service, SSS, the National Intelligence Agency, and then the Defense Intelligence Agency. They are coordinated by the Office of the National Security Advisor. But beyond them, there are several other ministries, departments, and agencies, including the military, that have intelligence departments. So if you pick the immigration as an example, immigration has an intelligence department. If you pick customs, customs has an intelligence department. Now, all of these fit into this national intelligence. I'm happy to note that the Office of the National Security Advisor is currently working on what it calls an intelligence fusion center. Now, these three main intelligence departments and these other ones that I mentioned that belongs to MDAs will fit into this intelligence fusion center. And my recommendation, which I will make at the end of this presentation, is that Manowar should find a place in this intelligence fusion center. We'll come to that at the end. Now, on this picture, it's a small example of what people think an intelligence operative is. So most outsiders think this is an intelligence operative. He looks like this. He carries a gun. Then your family thinks this is who you are. You sit in front of a computer. And then the person that recruits you thinks that this is who you are. You are James Bond. All those things James Bond can do. It is. Or for the movie industry, if you've watched this movie, you know that this is what an intelligence officer does in Hollywood movies. And then for you as an intelligence operative, this is what you think you do. But in reality, this is what you do. So we'll talk about that in the next slide. Now, what are the qualities of an intelligence operative? What are those good qualities that would make one a good intelligence operative? First off, is all the qualities that refer to the types of intelligence, and those qualities are reflected here. So we're saying that a good intelligence operative should have spatial intelligence. In other words, he or she should have the capabilities for visualizing the world in 3D. If you are the type that visualizes the world in 2D or in even black and white, then unfortunately you are not cut out for intelligence. You need to have that quality to see the world in 3D. In other words, approach the world from different angles and think about what if and the likelihood of different scenarios. And then you must be a naturalist. In other words, you must understand living things and reading nature. You see animals, you understand how they behave, how they come by. All of that is important. Then you should have that musical ability. In other words, you should be able to discern sounds, whether they are high pitch or low pitch, what is the rhythm, and then the timbre within sounds. It will help you as an intelligence officer. Then you should have logical and mathematical skills. You should be able to quantify things. You should make hypotheses, and then you should go about proving them using logic and mathematical skills. You should also have the existential intelligence. In other words, you should be able to tackle the questions of why we live and why we die. You should understand human nature and all that comes with it. You should have interpersonal skills, sensing people's feelings and motives. And then you should have bodily, the kinetic skills, coordinating your mind and your body. And that includes all the martial arts that you know. You should have that capability to defend yourself, to defend people around you. And then you should also have linguistic skills. In other words, you should be able to learn more than your mother tongue, because sometimes you find yourself in other environment and they are speaking other language. If you don't understand the ability to speak that language, then you will fail as an intelligence operative. You should also have intrapersonal skills to understand yourself, what you feel, and what you want. If you don't understand yourself, it will be impossible for you to control another person. And intelligence requires a certain ability of control. There is an intelligence skill called elicitation. If you don't understand yourself, you won't be able to elicitate information from the other person. You should also have spatial skills. You should have the ability to visualize and all of that. So all of these skills are important to a good intelligence operative. Now we've broken them down into three different components. The knowledge quality. The knowledge quality are listed there: basic understanding of the use of intelligence and evidence by law enforcement agencies. In other words, you need to know what law enforcement agencies in Nigeria require as intelligence, for the simple reason that you are going to provide that intelligence to somebody else. You are not likely to use that intelligence yourself. So knowing what the law says about virtually everything in the country is absolutely important. You are a jack of all trades and frankly master of none. You can't be a lawyer, but you are not operating as a lawyer because you need that legal knowledge. The knowledge of relevant legislation and its impact on the role of the agency activity. In other words, your industry where you operate, what are the relevant legislation. I quoted certain ordinances at the beginning. Every good intelligence operative should read that ordinance, understand its content. That's the only way you can contribute to it. The knowledge of intelligence collection methods and techniques. I mentioned elicitation as one of them. There are several others which we are going to discuss shortly. Good understanding of information management and data integrity issues. In today's world, any intelligence operative that does not understand information management and data integrity cannot be a good intelligence operative, because the world of today is all about data. Understanding the use of that data would help you as a good intelligence operative. Then the next category is the skills category, and most of the skills have been mentioned earlier on, but I will quickly repeat them. Information technology skills such as MS Office applications. You need to understand IT. It will help you as an intelligence operative, and we'll talk about this. Then your research skills. If I give you a topic to go and conduct a research on it, you should be able to come back to me with a very good research. Data interpretation skills. You should be able to look at data and interpret that data. If I give you, let's say, a data source from 100 sources, you should come back to me with an interpretation of that data, telling me this is the medium, this is the means, and this is the average. That's a good intelligence operative. Don't just come back to me with 100 different numbers. Create meaning out of those numbers by giving me average, by giving me medium, and by giving me other components of that information. Then problem solving skills. When you see a problem, you need to break it down into solutions and present it further to your line manager. Then your risk management skills. You have to understand the basic components of risk management. Identify threats, evaluate those threats, and then put forward mitigation measures. Every good intelligence operative should have these skills. Then writing, drafting, and presentation skills. You should be able to put down whatever it is that you think in a manner that the next person can understand it. No matter how good you are as an intelligence operative, if you can't write, if you can't draft, if you can't present this, whatever it is that you've been able to gather, then there is the gap in your abilities. Then the next stage is the experience category. Under this category, we're saying researching and gathering information from a wide range of sources. Don't just depend on one source. Have wide ranges. Each should be able to corroborate the other. If you're working in it, you should know who has what information, and you should be able to balance that information between the various levels. Then assessing information and conducting analysis and presenting results. You should be able to conduct analysis and present these results. Then evaluating information to determine its utility and application. Not all information is relevant. You should be able to know which one is relevant to your agency and present that to them. Even if they are not relevant currently, they may be relevant in the future. So know what is of importance. Know which legislation, which aspect of the law is of importance to our country and to your organization. Planning and managing your workload is absolutely important. If you don't have time management, you can't be a good intelligence operative. Then working on tight deadlines, knowing that sometimes what is required of you will deny you of sleep, it will deny you of pleasures. If you are the type that like hanging and drinking pepper soup and bottles, whatever, you are not likely to be good, except if you are using it as a workstation to gather information. Otherwise, if it's just for pleasure, then you are in the wrong. All right, let's move on. What are the sources of intelligence? Now, the sources of intelligence are all listed here. And there are so many in the modern world. Now, this is modern day intelligence, and the concept is called all source intelligence. I'll quickly run through them, starting from human. Human is human intelligence. That's the short form of it. In other words, the source of that intelligence is a human being. The next one is called imagery intelligence. Here, it's all about pictures. And that pictures can come in different forms. Interpreting that picture and creating meaning out of it is the source of that intelligence. Then the geospatial intelligence. This is a very modern type of source of intelligence. It uses geospatial technology, including data gathering, some of them space-based technology, others other forms like drones and aeroplanes. Gather intelligence and create meaning. So to give you an example, if you are interested in gathering intelligence in a forest area, through geospatial intelligence, you can look at the heat wave coming from that forest. And if there is a human being there or animals there, you'll be able to know from the difference from the heat wave that is coming from that So geospatial intelligence is it's a very reliable source of gathering intelligence. I know that the US and other Western countries are using it in Ukraine at the moment, and it's giving them a lot of intelligence. Then signal intelligence. This is in form of signals that are sent through radio waves and other types of waves, and you can now pick intelligence from that. Then measurement and signature intelligence. This is also based on mathematical accuracies based on measurements, and experts who, especially physics experts, are able to use this to gather intelligence and support certain components of operations. Then technical intelligence, the use of technology to gather intelligence. So sometimes it's just cameras that you wear in your body. Sometimes it's technology that has been developed to pick up sounds from long distances. There are various aspects of this technical or techint. It's all about using technology to gather intelligence. Then open source intelligence. This is the most common one. A lot of us use it. It means using open sources such as the newspaper, such as the online. You go online, Twitter, Instagram, name them, all of these online platforms. Here, the source is open. It's published publicly, and then you are able to use it to gather intelligence. And then the biometric intelligence, using biometric data. In today's world, there's a lot of biometric data, our fingerprint, our eyes, name them. All of that is captured somewhere in some form. If you have the ability to interpret that, it can mean you can gather intelligence from it. We're also saying that, and this is on this side, the extreme right, artificial intelligence and other information technology capabilities and platforms are assisting intelligence gathering and analysis. Now, all of these things I've mentioned, if you sit down and think about it, just Twitter, which is in one, the information you have in Twitter, the normal average human brain cannot interpret that information. That is where AI, artificial intelligence, comes in to help you collect and interpret that intelligence. You can, in 1 second, maybe there will be probably, I don't know the number of posts that will be on Twitter. So if you are using human brains to interpret those posts, you can't do it. But AI can do it for you and create meaning out of it. So again, having a hybrid of all of these intelligence sources using AI is the way to go. All right, let's quickly talk about intelligence operation. Everything we've spoken about, how do you now make it into some meaningful form through intelligence operation? So I have a couple of definitions here that I'll quickly read through. Starting from intelligence analysis. This is the product resulting from the collection, processing, integration, evaluation, analysis, and interpretation of available information concerning persons, groups, or areas of concern. Now, please note these 5 things I have highlighted: collection, processing, integration, evaluation, analysis, and interpretation. And then, of course, from available information concerning persons, groups, or areas of concern, it gives you an indication of what intelligence is. In certain areas, intelligence can refer to the activity which results in the product. So sometimes people use intelligence to mean the product. Also, sometimes it can refer to the organization. So SSS can be called an intelligence organization. NIA can be called like that. DIA can be called like that. The reason why intelligence communities are said is for their existence is said to be the provision of accurate and meaningful information and insights to consumers in a form they can use at the time they need them. Now, what is the intelligence community? Intelligence community is the aggregation of all the organizations that I mentioned earlier on, the 3 main ones, including the coordinating body, the NSA, as well as all the other ones in the sub-organizations that I mentioned, such as the military. All of them together form the intelligence community, and their reason they tell for existence is to create meaningful information that would help government. In this instance, the consumer here is government. So depending on the organization, consumers can have different meanings. In this instance, the consumer is government. But as we go further, you understand that sometimes there are different consumers. In other words, the job of the intelligence community is to answer the big 6 questions. What are these questions? And please note this is the imperatives. Every good intelligence should be able to know these imperatives: the who, the what, the when, the where, why, and how of any security threat or situation. So we have an attack on the 28th of March. Over 60 of our citizens were abducted. If you are an intelligence operative working on this, you just sit down and start asking yourself the question, who was behind that attack? What did that attack mean? How was it carried out? When did the attack occur? Where did it take place? Why did it happen? And then how? By the time you answer these imperatives, believe me, you have a very good report. You just present it forward. If you know the who, if you know the how, the what, the when, you've answered the question. So every time you are submitting a report, subject that report to these questions. Have you answered the who? Have you answered the what? Have you answered the when, the where, why, and how? The moment you've answered all of this, you have a good intelligence report in your hand. Now, if intelligence fails to effectively answer these questions, it fails altogether, unfortunately. And that's where we are. And that is why this topic is very relevant. Now, we're saying intelligence, on the right-hand side, intelligence can provide insights not available elsewhere, but warn of potential threats and opportunities. Underscore the word they are potential. Assess probable outcomes of proposed policy options, provide leadership profiles on foreign officials, and inform official travelers of counterintelligence and security threats. So all of these are the functions of intelligence. And every good intelligence collection capability would be able to handle all of this. Now, let's quickly talk about the intelligence cycle. The intelligence goes through a process known as the intelligence cycle, and there are 5 major steps which constitute the cycle. Number 1, planning and direction, then collection, processing, analysis and production, and dissemination. So we quickly go through this cycle, all of these things I've mentioned, starting from planning and direction, all through to dissemination. For you to be successful in intelligence, you have to be able to have this cycle. Now let's start with planning and direction, typically initiated by the intelligence consumer. In other words, government, through its policy direction, will give you an indication what it wants. So in this instance, what do we think is the interest of the Buhari administration? It's clear. If you recall, during his first administration, the Buhari administration outlined 3 things as its primary focus: fighting corruption, diversifying the economy, and then addressing insecurity. So any information that you provide that captures any of these 3 components would be of value to the government in terms of the consumer. Now, we're saying that here, under plan and direction, it constitutes the beginning and the end of the cycle. Remember, it's a cycle. It never stops. You provide it, you get feedback, and then you continue. This is where information needed is identified and collection requirements are given. Sometimes it is a tasking order from government. Government will raise a tasking order to intelligence organization, telling them this is what it wants. And that tasking order can be sent in writing or sometimes through verbal directives. Of course, government works, with written directives. So most times it's through written directives. It's also where the finished intelligence is consumed. Feedback is given and additional requirements are generated. Guidance in the planning and direction stage is dependent on the policy makers and other major departments and agencies of government. In this instance, we're talking in the Nigerian case, we're talking of the Office of the National Security Advisor, the presidency. There are 2 arms inside the presidency: the secretary to the government of the federation, and then the chief of staff to the president. They can't, through the presidential directives, send out tasking orders or requirements on the basis of what is being asked for by the different arms of government. So this is where intelligence actually emanates from. Understanding this would help you in understanding what government requires. And then you should also have the capacity for getting feedback from government, whether that thing you provided is good or not good. Now, the second stage of the cycle is the collection stage. Now, please remember, we're discussing this because I expect you in your organization to have these different components. Have someone within your organization that handles this component of direction at the beginning, someone that has the capacity for collection. This is the stage where raw information, remember this is raw information, is needed to answer the intelligence requirement is gathered. There are various ways of gathering intelligence, and we've talked about them earlier on. I'm just giving some examples here. The human intelligence, the signal intelligence, the imagery intelligence, the open source intelligence. So as an example, if I need from you, let's say in Benue State, there is a certain market where we know bandits come to steal or to shop, and I say I need the name and picture of a particular bandit. That's a requirement. Now, under this stage, the collection stage, you have to now design how you go and get that information, and that is called operational intelligence. Come up with an operation where you go to that market, get me the information I need, and then we'll move to the next stage. At this stage, all you are doing is you are just gathering the information through any of these means or a combination of all of these means that have been indicated. The next stage is the processing stage. Under this stage, the raw information collected is being converted into usable form. You've collected different information, some of them good, some of them not good. You now put it together to create meaning. So for instance, if you've taken photographs, this is the stage where you develop the photographs. And we're talking of old type photographs. In modern day world, you don't need to develop them, but you may need to put them in computers. You may need to print them out to create meaning. Or if the intelligence was gathered in a language, this is where you come and translate the language and see whether there is any meaning in that language. It's under the processing stage. At this stage, you start making meaning of the information you've gathered. The next one is analysis and production. Once you've done the processing, you now analyze the information. All the vast information received is integrated. You bring them all together. Just imagine a puzzle. If you've ever played a puzzle, all those little pieces, you put them together, integrate them, evaluate them, analyze them in order to form an aggregated picture of a situation. You are putting the puzzle, and then the puzzle is beginning to make meaning out for you. That is what happens here under analysis and production. And it needs somebody who is patient, somebody who has the capacities, all of those skill sets I mentioned at the beginning. That is what an analyst does. And then he or she now produces meaningful information out of it. The information is tested for reliability, validity, and relevance. These three words are absolutely important. Otherwise, you can mess yourself up. You have to ensure the reliability of the information. You have to ensure it's valid. You have to also ensure its relevance. This is the stage under analysis and production where you test all of these functions to ensure their relevance. Now, the other stage is the dissemination stage. This is one of the most critical stages of the intelligence cycle because it is where the finished product is distributed to the consumer. In other words, you've gathered the information, you've tested its integrity, you've put it into a meaningful form under the processing stage, and then you are now packaging it to be sent to the consumer. It has to be timely. It also has to be presented in a meaningful manner. The information needs to be sent out in a timely manner to ensure it is still relevant. If there is an enemy going to attack Nigeria and you are aware and you decide to take it slow until after the enemy has attacked Nigeria, you've not done your job in terms of dissemination. So it's absolutely important that it is timely. After the decision makers receive the finished intelligence, they must act on it. Now, this is a challenge in Nigeria, unfortunately. Severally, we've seen instances where intelligence has been provided, but it was never acted upon. And part of acting upon would include giving feedback to the intelligence organization, making key decisions based on the information received, or generating new intelligence requirements. So as an example, if your field operatives gather intelligence and send to you, you have to give them feedback. Tell them that intelligence they provided is good or no, or rather, or it's not good, they should look at other information. That will encourage them to either keep working or change their tactics. So always remember, dissemination is not the end. There must be feedback, either to the person who provided you or to the person that you provided that intelligence to in terms of dissemination. Now, let's quickly go to my recommendation. And I'm starting with this quote from somewhere in Australia. The quote says, while advocating for intelligence-led policing, which is very critical in modern-day Nigeria, we need to be guided by intelligence in our policing functions. An ideal model of policing and security enforcement to the Australian government, this Jerry Ratcliffe in 2008 listed community participation, and that is the key word here, community participation, as a key element in any contemporary strategy designed to promote law and order. In other words, if you want to be successful in law enforcement, you have to have community participation. Also, in the US, one of the tragic lessons from the 9/11 Commission report is that the local communities were not fully incorporated into the security systems of the US prior to the terrorist attack on September 11, 2001. Consequently, the Homeland Security has since been developed and implemented several community participation policing models in the United States. That is what they've learned. Now, what we're saying for Manowar, especially for the management, you should take advantage of the huge footprint. You are one of the organizations that has one of the best footprints in the country. And we're saying take advantage of that footprint. You are represented at the national level through your national command, at the state levels, all the 36 states, at the local government levels, at the ward level. I don't know of any other organization that has that kind of footprint. So take advantage of it across all aspects of the Nigerian society to implement a robust intelligence operations along the lines of what has been described in this presentation. This presentation has given us an indication of what the intelligence collection cycle should be. So you should set up a structure. And I'm happy to know that you have a department. You should now do an audit. Ask yourself, is that department structured in the manner that we've presented? If it's structured, then you just need to enhance the capability. If it's not structured along that line, then you need to restructure that department to ensure that you have a fit for purpose intelligence collection department. Then we're saying that the product, because remember, the purpose for which you have an intelligence department is to produce intelligence, and that intelligence is the product. And we're saying disseminate this to the Federal Ministry of Youth and Social Development in a timely manner. That is when you would have done your part. And we're also saying that the Federal Ministry of Youth and Social Development should set up a platform to collect and disseminate this intelligence to the Office of the National Security Advisor, so that this becomes part of the fit to the Intelligence Fusion Center. It is only then that you would have done your work. It is not your responsibility to act on that intelligence, except if you have approval by a coordinating element within the Nigerian intelligence community. And that coordinating element should be the Office of the National Security Advisor. Of course, with the mandate, since your reporting line is the Minister of Youth and Social Development, of course, under the Center for the center is designated under the ordinance. So that's my recommendation. It's very simple, very straightforward. I didn't want to make it difficult and complex, but I think if you do this, then you would have succeeded actively. What it would do is the government will recognize the role. I don't think the government really sees the value of the intelligence. Like, once you start doing that value, and then from that, you get a lot of attention. You probably will get more funding for training your operatives to be equipped in this intelligence function. But you have to make your relevance, and this is one of the best ways for you to make your relevance felt in government. These are the references where we got our materials from. A lot of it is from the US. They have one of the best intelligence communities. Of course, Israel too has a very good intelligence community. It's not as open as that of the US. If we are doing a second part of this that requires more details, I'll be happy to expand on any aspect that documented. So thank you very much for your time and for listening to my presentation. If anyone is interested in expanding any aspect of what we've discussed, these are our contact information. Our email is there, our telephone number is there, and then our address is there. We have pages on LinkedIn, on Twitter. If you're interested in any of this, reach out to us. We'll be happy to expand it. So thank you very much. I'm going to end the presentation here. If you have any questions, any comments, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you.